The needle was halfway into my spine when I remembered everything. I remembered dying at 32, alone in a hospice bed, my body destroyed by the third bone marrow extraction they'd forced on me. I remembered my sister's wedding photos on social media, her glowing face next to her husband, her healthy body that had devoured 3 separate donations from mine. I remembered my mother's voice. Don't be selfish, Lily. Family comes first. And I remembered that I was currently 17 years old, strapped to an operating table, about to make the first donation that would begin my destruction. Wait, I gasped. The doctor paused. It's normal to be nervous, but we've already started the anesthesia. I don't consent. My voice came out stronger than I expected. I'm withdrawing my consent for this procedure. The room went silent. Then my mother's face appeared above me, her expression shifting from concern to fury in half a second. Lily, don't you dare! I don't consent, I repeated louder this time. I'm a minor. I was coerced. I want this stopped immediately. My mother's hand clamped around my wrist, her nails digging in. The same grip I remembered from my first life, when she dragged me to 5 different doctors until she found one willing to perform the extraction on a 17-year-old. Your sister is dying. You're going to save her life. Do you understand me? But I did understand. I understood that Rachel wasn't dying. Not really. She had aplastic anemia, yes, but it was moderate, manageable with medication. The transplant would improve her quality of life, give her a better chance at normalcy, but she wouldn't die without it. I would, though. In my first life, the first donation had complications. Nerve damage that never fully healed. Then Rachel's body rejected the marrow partially, and they'd asked for a second donation 18 months later. That one had given me chronic pain and fatigue. By the time they'd asked for the third, when I was 28, and Rachel wanted to have a baby but her doctors recommended another boost to her system, I'd already been sick. The third extraction had destroyed what was left of my immune system. And through it all, Rachel had never once thanked me, had never visited me in the hospital, had posted Instagram stories from beach vacations while I recovered in my childhood bedroom, unable to afford my own apartment because medical debt had buried me. I remembered every detail now. The fluorescent lights in the recovery room, the smell of antiseptic, the way my mother had patted my hand absently before leaving to have dinner with Rachel, celebrating her new lease on life. The crushing loneliness of realizing that I'd given pieces of myself away to people who saw me as nothing more than spare parts. Dr. Stevens, I said, looking past my mother to the surgeon. I'm 17. I'm saying no. If you continue this procedure, it's assault. The doctor's face went pale. He stepped back from the table. Mrs. Chen, I think we need to... She's just scared, my mother snapped. It's a simple procedure, Lily. Stop being dramatic. It's not simple. There's a risk of nerve damage, infection, chronic pain, and long-term complications to my immune system and bone density. I rattled off the statistics I'd memorized in my first life, after everything had gone wrong and I'd finally researched what they'd done to me. The risk of severe complications is between 3 and 5%. The risk of death is 0.2%. And I'm saying no. My father appeared then, his face red. You selfish little bitch. Your sister is in the next room. Then I'll talk to her myself. I sat up, ripping the IV from my arm before anyone could stop me. Blood welled up at the injection site, but I barely felt it. The room spun. They'd already given me something, but I forced myself to stay upright. I want to talk to Rachel, alone. They tried to stop me. My mother grabbed my arm, my father blocked the door, but Dr. Stevens was already speaking quietly to a nurse, and I knew what I'd said had scared him. Liability. Lawsuit. A minor withdrawing consent was a legal nightmare, especially when that minor could recite medical statistics and clearly understood what she was refusing. 5 minutes, the doctor said finally. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen, I need you to step outside. Hospital policy. My mother looked like she wanted to murder me. Her face had gone purple, her hands clenched into fists. You don't know what you're doing, Lily. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life. Out, Dr. Stevens said firmly. Now, or I'm calling security. They left, but not before my mother leaned in close and hissed, "You're dead to me. Do you understand? Dead." I understood perfectly. In my first life, I'd been dead to them anyway. I'd just been too useful a corpse to bury. I found Rachel in the pre-op room next door scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw the sister I'd loved. Before everything, before I'd become nothing more than a walking blood bank to her. She was beautiful, my sister. 22 years old with long dark hair and delicate features. She'd always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one everyone loved. I'd been plain in comparison, forgettable. The dependable older sister who existed in Rachel's shadow. Lily? She set down her phone, confusion crossing her face. What's wrong? Mom said you were already in surgery. I stopped it, I said. I sat down in the chair next to her bed, my legs still shaky from whatever they'd put in my IV. I'm not doing it, Rachel. Her face went blank. What? I'm not donating my bone marrow. I don't consent. The blankness shattered into disbelief, then anger. Are you serious right now? Lily, I'm sick. You're not dying, I said quietly. Dr. Patel gave you 5 years with medication alone. The transplant is elective. It would help, yes, but you're not dying, Rachel. How dare you? Her voice was shaking. How dare you be so selfish? Did you know there are complications? I interrupted. Nerve damage, chronic pain, a 5% chance of permanent disability. Did you know that I could die? Don't be dramatic. I could die, Rachel. It's rare, but it happens. People die from bone marrow donations. They die from infections, from reactions to anesthesia, from complications we can't predict. I leaned forward, looking directly into her eyes. And I'm 17 years old. I have my whole life ahead of me. You're 22. You're an adult. You can wait for a marrow registry match, or you can manage with medication. But you don't get to take pieces of my body just because we share DNA. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In my first life, I'd never said no. I'd been the good daughter, the good sister. I'd believed them when they said family came first, that love meant sacrifice, that saying no was the same as killing her. But I'd learned differently. I'd learned it in a hospice bed, tubes running out of my arms, my body so broken that even morphine couldn't touch the pain. I'd learned it when Rachel had been too busy with her new baby to visit me one last time. I'd learned it when my mother had finally come, only to ask if I'd updated my will to make sure my meager savings went to help with Rachel's daughter's future. Mom's gonna kill you, Rachel said finally. Probably, I agreed. I stood up, my legs steadier now. The anger was burning through the sedative, giving me strength. But I'll be alive to experience it, which is more than I can say if I go through with this. I walked out before she could respond. The aftermath was nuclear. My mother screamed at me in the hospital parking lot, called me every name she could think of. Selfish, ungrateful, evil, a disgrace. She told me I was killing my sister. She told me I'd never been a good daughter. She told me she wished she'd never had me. I'd heard it all before in my first life, in smaller doses. The guilt trips, the manipulation. But hearing it now, with the memory of my death still fresh, it bounced off me like rain, off glass. I'm not changing my mind, I said calmly. She slapped me. Hard enough that my head snapped to the side. Hard enough that people in the parking lot stopped and stared. Mrs. Chen? Dr. Stevens had followed us out. I'm calling security. Don't bother, I said, tasting blood in my mouth. I'm leaving. I looked at my mother, at the hatred in her eyes. I'll come get my things from the house tomorrow, with a police escort if necessary. My father was silent through all of this, which was somehow worse than my mother's screaming. His silence was judgment, disappointment, the withdrawal of love. In my first life, he'd barely spoken to me after the second donation, as if my inability to magically cure Rachel with my bone marrow had been a personal failure. Now his silence was permission. Permission for my mother to hit me. Permission for Rachel to hate me. Permission for them to erase me from the family. I welcomed it. Rachel's fiancé appeared then. Marcus Chen, the golden boy from the golden family. He looked confused, overwhelmed. What's happening? The surgery? Ask your fiancé, I said, and walked away. I called Maya from a payphone outside the hospital. My best friend since middle school, the only person who'd stuck by me through everything in my first life. Can you come get me? Where are you? St. Mary's Hospital. And Maya? I need a place to stay. She picked me up 20 minutes later, took one look at my face, already bruising from my mother's slap, and said, "My parents are going to lose their shit when they see this." She was right. Maya's parents, the Rodriguezes, took one look at me and called their lawyer. Then they called the police. They documented everything. The bruise, my testimony, the hospital's confirmation that I'd withdrawn consent for a medical procedure. You're staying here, Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she had the presence of a general. As long as you need me, huh? No one's going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. I cried for the first time then. Not from pain or fear, but from relief. From the overwhelming gratitude of being protected, being believed, being treated like I mattered. The next day, Maya's father, a criminal defense attorney, accompanied me to my parents' house to collect my things. My mother refused to let us in. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, face twisted with rage. "You're not welcome here anymore," she said. "You made your choice." "Fine," I said. "Then I'm taking my belongings." "You don't have any belongings. Everything in that house was paid for by your father and me. You're not taking anything." Mr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen, your daughter is entitled to her personal possessions. If you don't allow her to collect them peacefully, we'll get a court order. And then we'll be filing a police report for the assault yesterday, along with a report with CPS about medical coercion of a minor." My mother's face went white. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," Mr. Rodriguez said pleasantly. 10 minutes later, I was packing my room. Everything I owned fit into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases. Clothes, books, my laptop, the jewelry my grandmother had given me before she died. My real grandmother, my father's mother, who'd actually loved me. Photos from before everything went wrong. Rachel appeared in my doorway as I was packing. She looked small, vulnerable. "Lily, please, can we talk?" "No," I said, not looking at her. "I don't understand why you're doing this. I'm your sister." "And I'm yours." I finally looked at her. "When's my birthday, Rachel?" She blinked. "What?" "My birthday. When is it?" July? August 14th, I said quietly. "I'm 17 years old. My favorite. Color is blue. I'm allergic to shellfish. I want to study computer science in college. I've been accepted to 3 universities with scholarships." I zipped up a suitcase. "Did you know any of that?" She was silent. "You don't know me at all," I said. "I'm just the sister who's supposed to save you. That's all I've ever been to this family." "That's not true." "When's the last time you asked me how I was doing? When's the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about you?" I picked up a box. "Don't answer. I already know." I walked past her and she didn't try to stop me. Living with the Rodriguezes was like stepping into an alternate universe. A universe where family dinners involved actual conversation, where people asked about your day and listened to the answer, where love wasn't conditional on sacrifice. Mrs. Rodriguez was a middle school teacher. Mr. Rodriguez was a lawyer. They had 3 kids. Maya, her older brother Carlos, who was in college, and her younger brother Miguel, who was 13. They were loud and chaotic, and they argued about everything from politics to what movie to watch. But underneath it all was a foundation of respect and genuine affection. They made me feel human again. My mom wants to know if you're seeing a therapist, Maya said one night, 2 weeks after I'd moved in. We were in her room, supposedly doing homework, but mostly just talking. I can't afford a therapist. She knows a guy who works on a sliding scale. He does pro bono work for abuse survivors. I looked at her sharply. I wasn't abused. Lily, Maya said gently, your parents tried to force you into a medical procedure you didn't consent to. Your mom hit you. They're saying you're killing your sister for not giving them your body parts. That's abuse. Hearing it said out loud like that, so bluntly, so clearly, made something crack inside me because she was right. I had been abused in both lives. Okay, I whispered. I'll go. Dr. Nathan Park became my lifeline over the next few months. A quiet Korean man in his 50s who'd survived his own family trauma, he helped me understand that what had happened to me wasn't normal, that I wasn't selfish or cruel or wrong. Your body belongs to you, he told me in one session. No one, not your parents, not your sister, not anyone, has the right to take it from you without your free, informed consent. Even if saying no means someone else suffers, your body is yours. It was such a simple concept, but I'd never heard it before. I finished my senior year of high school in a blur. My grades improved dramatically now that I wasn't exhausted all the time, wasn't stressed about upcoming procedures, wasn't drowning in family drama. I threw myself into my studies, into coding projects, into college applications. My family tried to contact me exactly 3 times. The first time was a week after I moved out. Rachel showed up at my school, crying, begging me to reconsider. She'd brought her doctor, Dr. Patel, who I remembered from my first life as being kind but ultimately useless. Lily, Dr. Patel said gently, I understand this is difficult, but Rachel really would benefit from a family donor. The registry process can take years. Then she waits, I said. Like everyone else. Her condition could deteriorate. With respect, Dr. Patel, you told my mother that Rachel had 5 years with medication management. That was 2 weeks ago. Has her condition changed that dramatically? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. Well, no, but then there's no emergency. She can wait for the registry. I looked at Rachel. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your insurance policy. I'm a person. And I said no. The second contact came a month later. My father showed up at the Rodriguez house with a lawyer. He tried to argue that since I was a minor, I was still under their guardianship, and they could consent to medical procedures on my behalf. Mr. Rodriguez, who was a much better lawyer, calmly explained that medical consent laws in our state required assent from minors over the age of 14 for non-emergency procedures, and that forcing an unwanted donation would constitute assault. My father left. The third contact was my mother, 6 weeks after everything fell apart. She came to the Rodriguez house at dinner time, and Mrs. Rodriguez made the mistake of letting her in. I want to talk to my daughter, my mother said. I'm not your daughter anymore, I said from the dining room doorway. You made that clear. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you're still my daughter. You hit me. You called me evil. You said I was dead to you. I was calm, eerily calm. Dr. Park and I had practiced this conversation. You chose. Now live with it. Ha! Lily, please. And then she did something I'd never seen her do before. She cried. Real tears streaming down her face. Your sister's getting worse. The medication isn't working as well as they hoped. She needs you. No, I said simply. I'll do anything. Anything you want. We can start over. I want you to leave, I said. And I want you to never contact me again. That's what I want. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward. You heard her. Leave or I'm calling the police. My mother looked at me with such hatred then, like I was the worst thing that had ever happened to her. You're going to regret this, she said. When Rachel dies, you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. If Rachel dies, it won't be because of me, I said. It'll be because aplastic anemia is a disease, and diseases sometimes kill people. That's not my fault, and it's not my responsibility. She left, and I never saw her again for 7 years. I graduated high school with honors in June. Top 10% of my class, multiple scholarship offers, a future stretching out ahead of me, bright and unmarred. I chose the University of British Columbia, far away, in a different country even. Close enough to the US border that I could come back if I needed to, but far enough that my family would have to work to find me. The Rodriguezes threw me a graduation party. Maya's extended family came, neighbors came, teachers came. Oh, it was the first time I'd ever felt celebrated for something I'd achieved, rather than something I could give. "I'm proud of you," Mrs. Rodriguez said, hugging me tight. "You're going to do amazing things, Mija." I believed her. I moved to Vancouver in August, international student housing on campus, a roommate from Hong Kong named Jenny who became one of my closest friends. I'd never lived away from home before. In my first life, I'd been too sick to move out after high school, and everything was new and overwhelming and perfect. I could choose my own food, stay up as late as I wanted, study what interested me without anyone telling me I should focus on something more practical, make friends who knew nothing about my family, who liked me for who I was rather than what I could provide. I was free. Computer science was harder than I expected, but more rewarding than I'd dreamed. I was good at it. Really good. Coding came naturally to me, the logic and structure appealing to my organized mind. My professors noticed. I got invited to research projects, to internships with local tech companies. In my first life, I'd never finished college. I dropped out after the second donation, too sick and too broke to continue. I'd spent my 20s working retail, living paycheck to paycheck, too exhausted to dream of anything better. This life was different. This life was mine. I dated a bit. Nothing serious, just casual relationships that helped me understand what I wanted. I discovered that I liked hiking, that I was good at rock climbing, that I had opinions about music and movies and politics that had nothing to do with anyone else's expectations. I discovered who I was when I wasn't being crushed under the weight of family obligation. Maya came to visit me during spring break of freshman year. We hiked Grouse Mountain, explored Granville Island, ate way too much poutine. "You look different," she said on our last night, as we watched the sunset over English Bay. "Different how?" "Happy," she said simply. "Like you're finally the person you were supposed to be." Maybe I was. She updated me on life back home. Carlos was graduating college, planning to go to law school like their father. Miguel was doing well in high school. And Rachel? "The Marrow registry found a partial match," Maya said. "She's having the transplant next month." Something twisted in my chest. Relief? Guilt? I couldn't tell. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yeah. The doctors say it's a good match, not perfect, but good enough." "Emotionally?" Maya shrugged. "My mom ran into her at the grocery store last month. She asked about you." "What did your mom say?" "That you were doing great and that Rachel needed to leave you alone." Maya squeezed my hand. "Marcus Chen broke up with her, did you know?" "That?" I hadn't known. "Why?" "My mom says he found out about what they did to you. The coercion. How they'd lied about it being urgent. Apparently he has a younger sister and the thought of anyone treating her that way made him sick." Maya smiled slightly. "He's actually been helping my dad with some legal stuff. Making sure your parents can't come after you financially or anything. He feels guilty, I think." "He didn't do anything wrong. He was going to benefit from what they did to you. That's close enough for him, apparently." I thought about that for a long time after Maya left. About how people who'd never met me, who had no obligation to me, were protecting me, while the people who were supposed to love me most had tried to destroy me. Family, I was learning, wasn't just about blood. Sophomore year, I got an internship at a gaming company in downtown Vancouver. I worked on a small indie game that ended up going viral. And suddenly I had real experience, real credentials. More importantly, I had money, enough to move out of student housing and into a small apartment with Jenny. It was tiny, barely 400 square feet split between two people. But it was ours. We painted the walls teal, hung string lights, put plants everywhere. It felt like home, in a way my childhood house never had. Junior year, I met James. He was in my advanced algorithms class, a tall guy with messy brown hair and the most patient teaching style I'd ever seen. He'd explain concepts to struggling students over and over without ever showing frustration. He was kind. Kindness, I'd learned, was rarer than it should be. We started as study partners, then friends. Then one night, after a particularly brutal exam, we went out for drinks and he kissed me outside the bar and everything changed. "I really like you," he said, almost shy about it. "Like, really like you. And I want to be honest about that because you seem like someone who appreciates honesty." I did. God, I did. After a lifetime of manipulation and hidden agendas, his straightforward sincerity was like water in a desert. "I really like you too," I said. We dated for 6 months before I told him about my family. About the donation, the abuse, the escape. I didn't tell him about the rebirth. That felt like too much, too impossible. But I told him everything else. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said, "Thank you for trusting me with that. And for the record, you made the right choice. You always have the right to say no about your own body." I fell in love with him in that moment. We moved in together senior year, a slightly bigger apartment in East Vancouver within walking distance of campus. We cooked dinners together, binge-watched TV shows, studied side by side at our secondhand kitchen table. It was domestic and comfortable and perfect. "What do you want to do after graduation?" he asked one night. "I have a job offer from a company in Toronto," I said. "It's a really good offer, James. 6 figures, full benefits, the kind of job I never thought I'd get. Toronto's far from Vancouver." "I know." He was quiet for a moment. "Do they have openings for network security specialists?" My heart jumped. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "I'm asking if you'd want company in Toronto," he said. "If you'd want me to come with you." I kissed him instead of answering, but the answer was yes. Obviously, yes. We graduated together in May, both with honors, both with job offers waiting. We packed up our little Vancouver apartment and moved east to Toronto to a whole new life. I was 22 years old, the same age Rachel had been when she demanded my bone marrow. But while she'd been planning a wedding and preparing for a transplant, I was starting my career, building a life with a partner who respected me, creating something that was entirely my own. The symmetry felt meaningful. Toronto was bigger than Vancouver, more diverse, more intense. I loved it immediately. My job was challenging but rewarding. I worked on security systems for a major tech company, helping to protect user data from breaches and attacks. It felt important, like I was doing something that mattered. James worked for a financial firm, securing their networks. We had an apartment in Liberty Village, small but charming. We explored the city together, tried all the different ethnic restaurants, went to festivals, took weekend trips to Niagara Falls and Ottawa. We built a life. Years passed. I got promoted. James got promoted. We adopted a cat, a scrappy rescuee named Professor Fluffington. We talked about marriage, about the future, about whether we wanted kids someday. I was 27 years old when my past finally caught up with me. Oh, it started with a LinkedIn message from Marcus Chen. I stared at my laptop screen for a long time, my coffee going cold beside me. James was at work. Professor Fluffington was napping on the couch. And I was looking at a message from the man who'd almost married my sister 7 years ago. "Lily, I know we've never met, but I need to speak with you urgently. It's about Rachel. Please call me." I should delete it, block him, pretend I'd never seen it. But I'd spent 7 years building a life where I made my own choices, where I wasn't afraid anymore. So I called, from a Google Voice number, untraceable. "Thank God," Marcus said when he answered. He sounded exhausted. I didn't know if you'd respond. You have 5 minutes, I said. Rachel is sick again, he said bluntly. The medication isn't working anymore. The transplant from the registry donor, it failed. Her body rejected it. She needs another transplant, and the registry hasn't found another match. Her doctors say without a family donor, she has maybe 2 years. Something cold settled in my chest. Not guilt, I'd worked through that in therapy. But something else. The ghost of old trauma, maybe? And you want me to donate? No. His answer surprised me. I want to tell you what really happened. What they did to you. I went silent, listening. I didn't know, Marcus said quietly. When we got engaged, Rachel and I got back together 3 years ago. Did you know that? I hadn't. I'd made a point of not looking up my family online, not checking social media, not letting them back into my life, even digitally. We got married 2 years ago, Marcus continued. And when we did, I made her tell me everything. The whole truth about what happened with you. I told her I wouldn't marry her unless she was honest. And she told me you'd been coerced, that your parents had lied to both of you about how urgent the transplant was, about the risks, about everything. She said she didn't realize at the time how much pressure they'd put on you, but looking back, she could see it clearly. He paused. She's been in therapy too, trying to understand her role in what happened, trying to become a better person. Good for her, I said, and meant it. But it still didn't change the past. There's more, Marcus said. Your parents, they've been looking for you. Your mother hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Fear spiked through me. What? I paid him to lose your trail. I've been paying him to feed her false information for weeks now. She thinks you're in Seattle working at Amazon. She'll never think to look in Toronto. Why would you do that? Because what they did to you was wrong, he said simply. And because Rachel knows it now too. She asked me to protect you from them. It's the least she can do. I sat with that for a moment. Rachel trying to protect me. It felt surreal. Is she really dying? I asked finally. Yes, the transplant rejection was severe. The doctors give her 18 months without another transplant. Maybe 2 years if she's lucky. And the registry? There's no guarantee they'll find another match in time. And what does she want from me? Nothing, Marcus said. She wanted me to tell you the truth, that she's sorry, that she understands if you never want to speak to her again. He cleared his throat. She wanted you to know that she named her daughter after you. Lily. She's 3 years old now. Everything stopped. What? Rachel has a daughter. We have a daughter. Her name is Lily. After you. His voice was soft. Rachel says you're the strongest person she's ever known, even if she didn't realize it when it mattered. She wanted our daughter to have a name that means strength. I couldn't breathe. A niece. I had a niece and I'd never known. A little girl who carried my name, who existed because Rachel had survived that first transplant from the registry donor. I'm not donating, I said, but my voice wavered. Okay, Marcus said simply. That's it? Okay? You don't owe her anything, Lily. You don't owe any of us anything. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. To know that she's changed, even if it's too late. To know that there's a little girl who carries your name and who Rachel tells every day about her aunt, who's brave and strong, and who stood up for herself when everyone else said she shouldn't. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in my Toronto apartment for hours after that call. Professor Fluffington climbed into my lap, purring, and I stroked his fur mechanically while my mind raced. A niece, a daughter named after me, Rachel in therapy trying to be better, Marcus protecting me from my parents. It didn't erase the past, didn't undo the damage, the trauma, the betrayal, but it complicated things in ways I wasn't sure how to process. When James came home from work that evening, he found me still sitting in the same spot, the cat in my lap, my phone in my hand. You okay? He asked, dropping his bag and sitting next to me on the couch. I told him everything about my first life, my death, the rebirth that I'd only hinted at before. I told him about the coercion, the donations, the escape, and I told him about the phone call. He listened without interrupting, his hand finding mine somewhere in the middle of my story. What do you want to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Do you want to see her? Did I? 7 years I'd spent building a life without them. 7 years of freedom and peace and healing. The thought of opening that door again terrified me. But I also remembered being 17, lying in that pre-op room, and having no one tell me the truth. No one give me a choice. No one protect me. Maybe I could be what I'd needed. Maybe I could make a different choice on my own terms. I want to talk to Rachel, I said finally. Not my parents, just Rachel. And I want you there. James squeezed my hand. Always. I called Marcus back the next day. He set up a video call, neutral ground, safe. Rachel appeared on screen looking gaunt, her skin pale, her hair thin. She'd aged more than 7 years should have allowed. Sickness had carved away everything soft about her, leaving angles and shadows. Lily, she said, and started crying immediately. I waited, unmoved. I'd cried enough for both of us in my first life. I'm so sorry, she managed after a moment. I'm so sorry. I swear I didn't know what they did to you. I thought you wanted to help. I thought... She broke down completely. Marcus appeared on screen next to her, holding her steady. He looked at me with quiet understanding, no judgment, no expectation. I believe you, I said, finally. Rachel looked up shocked. Her eyes were red, swollen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I believe that you didn't know the full story, I continued. Mom and Dad were good at manipulation. They probably told you I was just being dramatic or scared, that it was no big deal, that I should stop being selfish. I leaned back in my chair, James's hand steady on my shoulder. But that doesn't change what happened, or what you didn't do afterward. I know. You never thanked me, Rachel. Not once. You never visited me in the hospital after the first donation, even though I had complications. You never asked how I was doing. You posted vacation photos while I was recovering, beach selfies while I was learning to walk again because of nerve damage. My voice was steady, matter of fact. Even if you didn't know they'd forced me, you knew I'd given you something massive, and you treated it like it was nothing. She flinched like I'd hit her. You're right. You're completely right. I was selfish and thoughtless, and I took you for granted. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, I agreed. You don't. Silence stretched between us. James's thumb rubbed small circles on my shoulder, grounding me. But I'm going to get tested anyway, I heard myself say. Both of them stared at me. James's hand went still. I'm going to get tested to see if I'm still a match. And if I am, I'll consider a donation. Consider, Rachel, not promise. I held up a hand before she could speak. But there are conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Anything, Rachel said immediately, desperately. First, Mom and Dad are cut off. Completely. From both of us. You don't tell them we're in contact. You don't tell them if I donate. You don't tell them anything. They tried to destroy my body for their social climbing. They don't get to benefit from my choice now. Rachel nodded frantically, tears streaming down her face. Done. We haven't spoken to them in 2 years anyway. Not since Marcus found out what they did. They don't even know about Lily. That surprised me. They don't know about their granddaughter? No, and they never will. Rachel's voice was firm despite the tears. Marcus helped me understand what they did to you. To both of us, really. The manipulation, the control. We cut them off. Completely. Some of the tension in my chest eased. At least that was something. Second, I continued, I want a legally binding contract. I'll talk to my own lawyers, and you'll talk to yours. The contract will specify that this is a one-time donation, that I have no obligation to future procedures, and that my medical expenses and any complications will be fully covered by you and Marcus, not my insurance. If something goes wrong, I don't want to end up bankrupt like I stopped myself, like I had in my first life. I don't want to end up with medical debt. Done, Marcus said immediately. I'll have my lawyers draft something this week. You can have your team review it, make changes, whatever you need. We'll cover everything. Third, I said, I want regular updates on your health after the transplant. Not because I'm planning to be your sister again, I'm not. But because I deserve to know if my choice made a difference. I looked directly at Rachel through the screen. And I want you to tell your daughter about me. Not now, but when she's old enough. I want her to know she had an aunt who made a choice to help her mother, even after everything. I will, Rachel promised, her voice breaking. I swear I will. I talk about you all the time. How brave you are, how strong, how you're the reason I'm alive, how I wish things had been different. And fourth, I said, my voice softening slightly, I want you to live, Rachel. Really live. Not just exist, not just survive. I want you to take the second chance I'm giving you and do something meaningful with it. Travel. Create something. Make a difference. Don't waste it. I won't, she whispered. I promise I won't waste it. We talked for another hour after that. Carefully, with boundaries. Rachel told me about her life now. Her marriage to Marcus, her daughter, her work at a nonprofit. Marcus told me about his business, about the security measures he'd put in place to keep my parents away from me. They were different than I remembered. Older, sadder, more aware. Whether that would matter in the long run, I didn't know. But it was a start. I got tested the next week. James drove me to the clinic, held my hand through the blood draw, took me for ice cream afterward like I was a kid getting a shot. Are you sure about this? He asked as we sat in the park watching dogs play. No, I admitted. But I think I need to choose for myself. Not because they're forcing me, not because I feel guilty, but because I get to decide what to do with my own body. And this time I'm deciding yes. On my terms. He kissed my forehead. I love you. I love you too. The results came back a week later. I was still a match. An excellent match, actually. The years hadn't changed our genetic compatibility. I spent 3 days thinking about it, weighing the risks, lower now than they'd been at 17 but still present. Considering the consequences, talking to my therapist who neither encouraged nor discouraged me but helped me process my feelings. And then I made my choice. I would do it. Not for Rachel, not for my parents. Not even for little Lily, though knowing about her had certainly influenced me. I would do it for myself. To prove that I could make this choice freely, without coercion. To reclaim something that had been stolen from me in my first life. The power to say yes because I'd already learned the power of saying no. The donation was scheduled for 3 months later, time enough for all the legal paperwork to be finalized, for me to go through the full medical screening, for Rachel to prepare. Marcus kept his word. He paid for everything. My travel to the hospital in Chicago, where Rachel's doctors worked. A luxury hotel suite for my recovery, a private nurse. He paid for James's travel too, making sure I'd have support. The contract was ironclad. I read it 3 times, had my lawyer read it twice. It specified everything. This was a one-time donation. I had no future obligation. All medical costs were covered. Any complications would be fully compensated. If something went wrong, I wouldn't be left bankrupt and broken like I had been before. Rachel and I didn't meet in person before the donation. I told her I wasn't ready for that. We communicated through Marcus, through emails, through brief video calls where we discussed logistics, but nothing personal. I was protecting myself. And I wasn't ashamed of that. The night before the procedure, James and I had dinner at an expensive restaurant in Chicago. We'd never eaten somewhere this nice. Marcus was paying, insisted on it. The steak melted in my mouth, the wine was perfect, the dessert was decadent. Last meal before the execution? James joked, trying to lighten the mood. More like celebrating my choice, I said. In my old life, in the life I don't talk about much, I never got to celebrate. I was just expected to give and give and give until there was nothing left. I took his hand across the table. This time I'm choosing, and that's worth celebrating. You're the strongest person I know, he said. You tell me that a lot. Because it's true. You died for them once. This time you're living for yourself, even when you're helping them. That's different. That's powerful. Maybe he was right. The procedure itself was routine. Modern medicine had come a long way since my first donation in my first life. They used better anesthesia, better extraction techniques. I was in and out in a few hours. I woke up sore, but not in agony. Uncomfortable, but not in the kind of pain I remembered from before. James was there when I opened my eyes, holding my hand. Hey, he said softly. You did it. I did it, I agreed. Rachel tried to visit me in recovery, but I said no. I wasn't ready for that. Marcus came instead, brought flowers, thanked me with tears in his eyes. She's going to live because of you, he said. She's going to live because of modern medicine and good doctors and her own strength, I corrected. I just provided the raw materials. But I was glad. Despite everything, I was glad. The recovery took 2 weeks. James stayed with me the whole time, working remotely from the hotel room. We watched terrible TV, ordered room service, let the private nurse check on me twice a day. It was almost like a vacation, if vacations involved bone pain and fatigue. The marrow took. Rachel's doctors called it a perfect transplant, the best result they could have hoped for. Her body accepted the donation without complications, without rejection. She was going to live. 3 months after the donation, Marcus sent me a video. Rachel, looking healthier than I'd seen her in years, playing with her daughter in a park. The little girl, my niece, Lily, was laughing as Rachel pushed her on a swing. Her hair was dark like Rachel's, her eyes bright with joy. Thank you, Rachel said to the camera, breathless from pushing the swing. Thank you for giving me this, for giving us this. I won't waste it, I promise. She kept her distance like I'd asked. We didn't become close, we didn't reconcile in any dramatic way, but every 6 months, like clockwork, I got an update. Photos of little Lily growing up. News of Rachel's health consistently good. Information about the foundation Rachel had started. A nonprofit that educated families about bone marrow donation and medical consent. She was making her second chance count. As for me, life went on. I got promoted to senior engineer at my company. James and I got engaged, planned a small wedding. We bought a condo in Toronto, adopted another cat. I spoke at tech conferences, mentored younger developers, built a career I was proud of. I was 29 when Rachel's first letter arrived. Not an email, an actual letter, handwritten on cream-colored stationery. Dear Lily, it began. I know we agreed to email updates, but I wanted to write to you properly. To tell you that I'm 5 years cancer-free now, 5 years healthy because of you. To tell you that our daughter asks about you all the time. She's 8 now, and she's smart and kind and brave, just like her namesake. I've been working with legislators to change medical consent laws for minors. We've gotten 2 states to strengthen protection so far. I testify regularly about what happened to us, to you, and how it should never happen again. I know we're not close. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or your love. But I want you to know that I think about you every day, that I'm grateful every day, that I'm trying every day to be worthy of the gift you gave me. Your sister, Rachel. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a box in my closet with the other updates she'd sent. I didn't write back, but I kept the letter. James and I got married when I was 30. Small ceremony at City Hall, just our closest friends. No family, my choice, and one James supported completely. We honeymooned in Japan, spent 2 weeks exploring Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka. It was perfect. Do you ever regret it? James asked one night as we sat in an onsen, watching steam rise into the cold air. Donating to Rachel? I thought about it. No, because I did it on my terms. That makes all the difference. Do you think you'll ever want to meet Lily, your niece? Maybe someday, I said. When she's old enough to understand the whole story, when I'm ready. That seems fair. I turned 32 on a Tuesday. The age I'd died in my first life. The age where everything had ended. This time, everything was beginning. I was healthy, successful, loved. I had a career, a partner, a home. I had friends who cared about me, hobbies I enjoyed, a future that stretched out bright and unmarked. I'd won. Not by getting revenge, not by watching my family suffer, but by living well. By building something they couldn't touch. On my birthday, James surprised me with a trip to Vancouver. We visited our old apartment, walked around UBC's campus, hiked the trails we used to explore when we were students. We had dinner with Jenny, my old roommate, who was now married with a baby on the way. "You look happy," she said as we said goodbye. I am, I realized. I really am. That night, in our hotel room overlooking English Bay, my phone buzzed. An email from Marcus. "Lily wants to meet you. My wife Rachel says it should be your choice. But our daughter, your niece, has been asking to meet the aunt she's named after. She's 9 now. Old enough to understand, Rachel thinks. If you're interested, we'd love to arrange something. No pressure, just an invitation." I showed James the email. "What do you think?" he asked. I took a breath. I think I want to meet her, not Rachel, not yet, but the kid. She didn't do anything wrong. Then let's make it happen. We arranged a meeting for 2 months later. Neutral ground, a park in Seattle halfway between Toronto and wherever Rachel lived now. Marcus brought little Lily. James came with me. I saw her before she saw me. 9 years old with Rachel's dark hair and Marcus's height. She was kicking a soccer ball around while Marcus watched from a bench. Then Marcus said something to her, pointed in my direction. She looked up and smiled. She ran over, not shy at all. "Aunt Lily?" "That's me," I said, suddenly nervous. "I'm Lily too." She beamed. "We have the same name. Mom says you're the bravest person she knows." "Your mom talks too much," I said, but I was smiling. "She says you helped her when she was sick, that you gave her medicine from your bones." Lily looked at me with wide eyes. "That sounds like a superhero." "It's not that exciting," I said. "It's just science." "Science is exciting." She grabbed my hand. "Do you want to play soccer with me?" I looked at James, who nodded encouragingly, then at Marcus, who was watching with tears in his eyes. "Sure," I said. "Let's play." We spent 2 hours in that park, playing soccer, talking about school and science and her favorite books. She was smart and funny and full of life. She had no idea about the complicated history between her mother and me, and I was glad. She just knew I was her aunt, someone special, someone who'd helped her mom. When it was time to leave, she hugged me tight. "Can I see you again?" I looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Yeah," I said. "We can do this again." And we did. Every few months, I'd meet Lily in some city between our homes. Sometimes James came, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes Marcus brought Rachel. Those visits were awkward but civil. Mostly it was just me and my niece, building a relationship that was ours alone. She was 12 when she finally asked the hard question. We were at a museum in Detroit looking at dinosaur bones. She'd been quiet all day, thoughtful. Then, "Aunt Lily, why don't you and Mom talk more?" I'd known this was coming. Rachel and I had agreed I'd tell her the truth when she was ready to hear it. "Because your mom and I had a complicated relationship when we were younger." I said carefully, "Your grandparents, my parents, put a lot of pressure on me to do things I didn't want to do. And your mom didn't realize how much pressure. They were putting on me. What kind of things? Medical things, things involving my body. I knelt down to her level. When I was 17, I donated bone marrow to your mom. But I didn't really want to. I felt forced. And that hurt me physically and emotionally. Lily's eyes went wide. But Mom says you saved her life. She says you're a hero. I did save her life, I agreed. But the first time, I wasn't a hero. I was just a scared kid who didn't know how to say no. The second time, when I donated again to help your mom more recently, I did it because I chose to. That time, I was a hero. Because I made the choice myself. She thought about that. Mom says you're brave because you said no. That you taught her that saying no is important. Your mom's right about that, I said. Saying no is important. Your body belongs to you. No one gets to tell you what to do with it. Not your parents, not anyone, okay? Okay, she said seriously. Then, I'm glad you said yes the second time. I like having you as my aunt. I hugged her. I like being your aunt. As she got older, our conversations deepened. I told her more about what had happened. Age-appropriate versions of the truth. Rachel told her side too, I learned later. My niece grew up understanding consent, boundaries, autonomy in ways most kids didn't. She wanted to be a doctor, she told me when she was 14. A bone marrow specialist. So I can help people like Mom, but also make sure nobody gets hurt like you did. I'd never been prouder of someone. Time kept moving. I turned 35, then 38. James and I talked about kids, decided we were happy with our life as it was. We traveled. We worked. We volunteered at a tech education nonprofit teaching coding to underprivileged kids. Rachel and I remained cordial but distant. We sent emails on birthdays. We coordinated around Lily's visits. We were never going to be close, and I was okay with that. Some relationships couldn't be repaired, only managed. My parents died when I was 40. First my father, heart attack. Then my mother, 6 months later, stroke. Marcus told me I'd asked him to notify me if anything happened, but I didn't attend the funerals. Do you want to know what the obituaries said? Marcus asked. No, I said. They made their choices. I made mine. For what it's worth, they never stopped looking for you. Your mother especially, she hired 4 different PIs over the years. Good thing you kept sending them on wild goose chases. It was the least I could do. Rachel sent me a letter after our mother died. A long letter, pages and pages about grief and regret and complicated feelings, about how she'd tried to get our mother to understand what she'd done to me, but our mother had refused, had insisted to her dying day that she'd been right, that family should sacrifice for each other. I'm sorry, Rachel wrote, for all of it, for not standing up for you then, for not understanding until it was too late, for not being the sister you deserved. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. I read the letter once, put it in the box with the others, and moved on. I was 42 when I achieved my biggest career milestone. My team launched a security protocol that became industry standard, protecting millions of users' data. I got written up in tech magazines, invited to speak at conferences, offered positions at major companies. I turned them all down. I liked where I was. I liked the life I'd built. You could make so much more money, James pointed out. I make enough, I said. Money isn't everything. He kissed my temple. You're right. Money isn't everything. Lily graduated high school at 18. Top of her class, scholarship to Johns Hopkins for pre-med. Rachel and Marcus threw a graduation party and invited me. I went, James at my side. It was the first time I'd been in the same room as Rachel in over 20 years. We were polite, cordial, 2 women who shared DNA and a traumatic history, but nothing else. Thank you for coming, Rachel said quietly when we had a moment alone. I came for Lily, I said. Not for you. I know, but still. Thank you. I nodded and walked away. Later, Lily found me on the patio, away from the crowd. Aunt Lily, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Mom and I are similar, like personality-wise? I looked at this young woman, almost an adult now, ready to go out into the world. She had Rachel's looks, but something else in her eyes. Something harder, more aware. No, I said honestly. You're stronger than she was at your age. Kinder, too. You question things. You think about other people. You don't take things for granted. Mom says I'm like you, Lily said. That surprised me. She does? She says I have your strength, your integrity. She says that's why she named me after you, because she wanted me to be like you, not like her. I didn't know what to say to that. I want you to know something, Lily continued. I know what happened. All of it. Mom told me everything when I turned 16. She wanted me to understand, to never let anyone do to me what happened to you. Good, I said, and I want you to know that I get it. Why you're not close with her. Why you keep your distance. I get it, and I respect it. She took my hand. But I also want you to know that I love you. You're my aunt, and you're amazing, and I'm so glad I know you. I hugged her then, this young woman who I'd helped bring into the world in a roundabout way. I love you too, kid. I'm proud of you. I'm going to be a good doctor, she promised. I'm going to help people. And I'm going to make sure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. I believe you, I said. She went off to Johns Hopkins that fall. I visited her once a semester, took her to dinner, listened to her talk about her classes and her dreams. She was going to change the world, this kid. I could see it. Years passed. I turned 50. James and I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary with a trip to Greece. We stood on the cliffs of Santorini, watching the sunset, and I thought about all the life I'd lived. 2 lives, really. One that had ended in pain and regret, and one that had been everything I dreamed of. Happy? James asked, arm around my waist. So happy, I said. Any regrets? I thought about it, about the choices I'd made, the bridges I'd burned, the family I'd left behind, about the donation I'd refused and the one I'd eventually given, about my niece, my career, my life. No, I said finally. No regrets. I did what I needed to do to survive, to thrive, and I'd do it all again. Even donating the second time? Especially that, I said, because that was my choice. And choice is everything. He kissed me as the sun set over the Aegean, and I thought, this is what winning looks like. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Just a good life. Lived on my own terms. I was 53 when Rachel got sick again. Cancer this time, unrelated to the aplastic anemia. Stage 4, aggressive. She had months, maybe. Marcus called to tell me. I listened without emotion. She wants to see you, he said. Before the end. She wants to say goodbye. I don't owe her that, I said. I know, I'm not saying you do, I'm just passing along the message. I thought about it for 3 days. Talked to James, to my therapist, to Maya, who I still talk to every week despite the distance. Weighed my feelings, my boundaries, my capacity for forgiveness. In the end, I decided to go. Not because I owed Rachel anything, but because I wanted to close that chapter for myself. I flew to Chicago alone. James offered to come, but I said no. This was something I needed to do by myself. Rachel was in hospice when I arrived. She looked small in the hospital bed, eaten away by disease. She was only 55 years old, but she looked 80. Lily, she said when she saw me. Her voice was weak. You came? I came. I agreed. I sat in the chair next to her bed, keeping space between us. We looked at each other for a long moment. Thank you, Rachel said finally. For everything. For keeping me alive all these years. For being there for Lily. For teaching me what strength really looks like. You're welcome, I said. I'm sorry, she continued. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for what happened, for what I took from you, for what I didn't see when I should have. I'm sorry for all of it. I know, I said, and I appreciate that. But Rachel, you need to understand something. I don't forgive you. I don't hate you, but I don't forgive you either. What happened broke something between us that can't be fixed. She nodded, tears sliding down her hollow cheeks. I understand. But I'm glad you got to live, I continued. I'm glad you got to raise Lily, to start that foundation, to make a difference. I'm glad my choice, my second choice, gave you that chance. Me too, she whispered. We sat in silence for a while. There wasn't much else to say. The past was the past. She was dying, and I had a life to get back to. Take care of yourself, Rachel, I said finally, standing up. Wait, she said. One more thing. Thank you for saving me. Both times. Even when I didn't deserve it. Even when it hurt you. Thank you. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who'd been my sister, my tormentor, my responsibility. This woman who'd taken so much from me and given back so little until it was too late. You're welcome, I said, and meant it. I left the hospice room and didn't look back. Rachel died 2 weeks later. Lily called to tell me, crying. I comforted her, promised to come to the funeral. I kept that promise. I sat in the back of the church, James beside me, and listened to people talk about Rachel Chen, wife, mother, activist, founder of the Consent and Medical Care Foundation, a woman who'd made mistakes but had spent her second chance trying to make amends. It was a nice story, and it was even mostly true. Marcus gave the eulogy. He talked about Rachel's work, her love for their daughter, her gratitude for every day she'd been given. He didn't mention me by name, but he said something that made me pause. Rachel used to say that the bravest thing she ever witnessed was someone saying no. That real love means respecting boundaries, even when those boundaries hurt. She learned that lesson too late, but she learned it. And she spent the rest of her life teaching it to others. After the funeral, Lily found me. She was 24 now in medical school, brilliant and driven and kind. Thank you for coming, she said, hugging me tight. Of course, I said. Mom left you something, a letter. She asked me to give it to you after. She handed me an envelope. I tucked it into my purse without opening it. And she left you something else, Lily continued. The foundation. She left it to both of us. You and me. Joint directors if you want. You'd be making decisions remotely, of course. No pressure to be involved beyond what you want. I stared at her. She left me her foundation? She said it was always yours, Lily said. That you inspired it. That everything good she did came from the lessons you taught her. She wanted you to have it, to shape it, to make sure it keeps helping people. I didn't know what to say. You don't have to decide now, Lily said gently. But think about it, please. I'll think about it, I promised. That night, in my hotel room, I finally opened Rachel's letter, the last words she'd ever write to me. Dear Lily, it began, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I want you to know that I died grateful. Grateful for the years you gave me. Grateful for the lessons you taught me. Grateful that I got to raise my daughter and see her become someone extraordinary. I know I hurt you. I know I can never make up for what happened. But I hope that the foundation, the work we've done, the lives we've changed, I hope that's worth something. I hope that something good came from all of it. You taught me that love without respect is worthless. That family without boundaries is poison. That saying yes only matters when you're free to say no. Those lessons changed my life. They shaped how I raised Lily. They inspired everything I built. So thank you for saving me twice, for refusing me once, for teaching me what it means to be strong. I hope you've been happy, Lily. I hope you've lived a life that's wholly and completely yours. You deserve that more than anyone I've ever known. Love, Rachel. P.S. I never told mom and dad where you were. They asked hundreds of times over the years. They begged. They threatened. But I never told. It was the least I could do, the only protection I could offer. I hope that counts for something. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my suitcase. Rachel was gone. My parents were gone. The people who'd tried to destroy me were all dead. And I was alive, healthy, successful, loved. I'd won. Not by destroying them, not by revenge, but by surviving them. By building a life they couldn't touch. By choosing, always choosing, what to give and what to keep. 2 weeks later, I accepted the co-directorship of Rachel's foundation. Not because I owed her anything, but because the work was important. Because preventing what happened to me from happening to others mattered. Lily and I ran it together. She handled the day-to-day. I helped with strategy and fundraising. We were good together. We changed laws, saved lives, made a difference. And every time we helped someone, I thought, this is what it was all for. I'm 60 now. James and I are planning to retire next year, travel the world properly. Lily is a successful doctor teaching at Hopkins and running the foundation. She has a partner, 2 kids of her own. She's named her daughter after me, another Lily in the family line. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not reconciling with my sister before she died. If I wish we'd been closer. The answer is no. Rachel and I had the relationship we were meant to have. Distant, but not hateful. Connected, but not close. She respected my boundaries, and I respected her growth. That was enough. Sometimes people ask if I regret donating that second time. The answer is still no. I chose to donate. That choice was mine. And it led to Rachel having 25 more years of life, to Lily existing, to a foundation that's helped thousands of families navigate medical decisions with real consent. That was worth it. But what I'm most proud of isn't any of that. What I'm most proud of is that first choice. The choice to say no. They forced me to donate bone marrow to her. After Rebirth, I moved countries and changed my number. And I lived happily ever after. Not because everything worked out perfectly, not because I got revenge or because my family apologized enough, or because the pain went away completely, but because I chose myself. I protected myself. I built a life that was mine. And in the end, that's the only victory that matters. The needle was halfway into my spine when I remembered everything. And I said no. That no saved my life. Everything else was just details.